Good evening, beautiful peoples. Recorded by Richter here for another segment on some music. I wanted to come on here today to talk about some hip hop and also promote our podcast that we're going to be recording tomorrow. E-Man and I are set to do a Beats, Brews, and Points of View episode tomorrow afternoon. So we'll probably have it out sometime early next week. And on that one, we wanted to kind of discuss some of the regional rap stuff that's been going on. We got a bunch of different new freestyles that have been coming out and people kind of talking their shit. So we want to get into it. We want to dive in. 2025 has started off pretty crazy so far. Happy New Year to everyone. So we got regional rap to talk about on the podcast, and that's also kind of what I wanted to talk about on here today to kind of preview for you what we're going to be discussing at length on the podcast. But the reason we wanted to discuss regional rap is because that is something that E and I talk about a lot, and it's something I actually brought up in the last video about Kendrick Lamar's GNX and how it feels like that sound is kind of coming back and kind of putting your stamp on where you're from and making the sonics and your product kind of reflect who you are and where you're from. And Kendrick did that in a big way with GNX. I mean, it's got all the young LA rappers on it. The sonics are super heavy on the West Coast. You got Mustard all over it. And that wasn't the only thing regional wise that kind of sparked that idea in my head. And there was other instances earlier in the year of examples of this starting to bubble up again. You had Doechii making a statement this year for Florida rappers. Her and Denzel Curry are representing Florida, and I think that those two definitely make that known, especially in these projects they dropped this last year. So Doechii put out Alligator Bites Never Heal. She talks about being the swamp princess constantly, thematically and aesthetically. If you look at the album cover, she's got, I've got one of them on my wall, but she has the alligator in it. The colors are very green, and she's, kind of painting what it was like for her coming up in Florida. And then obviously Denzel Curry put out The King of the Mischievous South Volume 2, and that one is very unapologetically Southern. You got, a bunch of 3 6 Mafia cats on there and samples, and it is just unapologetically Southern. And I love that. I love that these people are showcasing, and these are artists that could sound like they're from anywhere, but the fact that they're still sprinkling in just a little bit so you know where they're from is important to me. I'm excited that we're already getting all these freestyles coming at us for the new year. I wanted to talk about a few of the songs and the rap songs that are fitting in the theme of shit talking and claiming that you're the one and kind of that area of lyrics. So the ones I wanted to discuss on here, I guess what inspired this video, I would probably want to put them in order here. So first you had Tyler rapping over Kendrick's Hey Now, and that was a very braggadocious Tyler, and him kind of stamping that he is the king of this shit right now. He's been kind of on that type of time on Chromacopia this year. Got that one right here, Chromacopia. He talks about how he's the biggest out the city next to Kenny. We're talking about Kendrick. So Kendrick and Tyler leading the pack right now at the West Coast, and I think that they're probably way up right now as far as the lead on things goes. But you had other ones too, besides Tyler talking some shit on Kendrick's Hey Now. Ones that I heard more recently would be the return of Badman. Joey Badass himself. He put out a freestyle called The Ruler's Back. And this one is dope because I'm a giant Joey Badass fan. And I've always been a big Pro Era fan since the time he was 17 on to now. I've just been a giant fan of his, not only his music, but his acting. He was on the show that I love called Mr. Robot. He's doing good on the power shit too. And that's kind of why he hasn't been as heavily prevalent in the hip hop scene as he used to be because he's, you know, taking breaks to do acting. But he's back with a new freestyle, and it seems like he's on that type of energy that's continued through the Kendrick stuff. He has definitely some shots, not shots, but just like chess moves, kind of like this is just how it's supposed to be. Like, that's the one thing that I get a little annoyed by when I'm watching some of the reactor videos and shit like that, is these dudes all, if anyone puts out a song, they like try to make a link towards someone that's buzzworthy. Like, of course they're talking about Drake, or they're talking about Kendrick, and it's just like sometimes the media almost paints the narratives that aren't there, and some of these guys got to do a little bit better work. I'm pretty sure Joey and Kendrick are friends, but this is what hip-hop is. I don't know if you guys remember when Kendrick was doing interviews around the time that the Control verse came out, and Kendrick's attitude was always the same when he was asked about that. He was like, I didn't even realize that I was doing anything crazy. Like, this is just rapping. This is what it's supposed to be. This is competitive. I'm just drawing the competitive nature out of the people that I see as peers. And I think that's what Joey's doing right back to him. You know, he talks about too much West Coast dick licking, which is a Jay-Z line for 22 Twos off Reasonable Doubt. And I don't think that's necessarily talking shit to Kendrick. That's just mostly saying, like, everybody's sitting back watching Kendrick run shit up, and nobody from the East Coast, or where the place that I represent, are barking back. So here I am, I'll be the one to do it. And I've seen a couple people say stuff like online on YouTube that, oh, this is too little too late. Where was Joey when all this was going off? Joey was busy. And now he's ready to rap again, and I love this type of energy out of Joey. And I'm saying this as a giant Kendrick fan. I love this. I think this is what it's supposed to be. I feel like that's just what hip-hop was. You know, like, it was, I'm better than you, and I'm going to show you how. So I guess maybe people that aren't from that era of hip-hop have like a little bit of a softer edge to this stuff, and everything seems like a shot when it's not exactly there. If I'm being perfectly honest about Joey Badass, I think he is a more formidable opponent to Kendrick than Drake is. If we're talking about sheer rapping skills and output of music, I think Joey Badass's catalog is better than Drake's. I think he's a better rapper than Drake is. He's more authentic than Drake is. I would think that that's a better pairing for Kendrick, quite honestly. I don't know if we'll see Kendrick come back at him, though, but I think it'll definitely stir up some shit. So I'm happy that that's there. There was a couple lines that I guess you could paint into being like little jabs at Kendrick. But this is cool, though, to me, because Joey came out with that freestyle. He's out of New York, and he represents the East Coast. Little Simz just dropped a new song, and if you're unfamiliar with Little Simz is a Nigerian artist out of the UK, out of England, and she is just a monster. She is by far and away one of my favorites of that generation. She's just smoking everything that she touches. I mean, literally has not had a bad album yet. I kind of tuned into her when she started around the Gray album, but she had 2 albums before that. But from even where I caught on to now, it's like the craziest. Gray area, sometimes I might be introvert. No Thank You, those 3 in a row, nuts. I don't know if Drop 7 is considered an album or an EP, because that was a very short project that she put out last year. That was a little bit more dancey and upbeat. But man, Lil Simz is just a monster. She dropped a brand new song called Hello Hi, and she's got that braggadocious, I'm coming for the top spot type of attitude. And I know that just like Tyler, she's also, and Denzel, all 3 of them are very heavily influenced by Kendrick. So I think we're starting to see the spawns of him kind of, and the ones that are a little bit younger than him too, you know, kind of come back outside and get hungry for this in the way that Doechii is, in the way that Tyler is, you know. So I'm really happy with that coming from her, because she deserves it. I think I would honestly, you know, people always talk best female rapper versus best male rapper. I would put Little Simz, Rapsody, and Doechii up against any dude in the game right now, and I think they could hold their own, if not best them. Especially Doechii, man. She is just like, she wants it. She really, really wants it, and it's very evident by the output of things that she's doing. The Colbert Report performance was insane. The Tiny Desk performance was absolutely insane. I can't wait for her. And Joey Badass, these dudes that are also making these freestyles that are talking about, you know, they're the best. Man, you guys are going to have a problem with Doechii next year. I'm sorry, but 2025 is going to be rough for you if Doechii actually drops the album. Anyways, continuing on. So, Joey Badass, East Coast. Little Simz, UK. And then the Denzel Curry freestyle. He represents Florida. And then right before the podcast, I saw this one out of my own hometown. Well, sort of, halfway out of my own town. Detroit. Danny Brown has a brand new song out with Idols, the British like post-hardcore punk band Idols, who I'm a fan of. They collaborated with Danny Brown, and it is amazing. Like, it sounds so good. Like, marriage of them two performing together on this song, I could hear a whole album of these two. It's so dope. Like, it is really, 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 really good. And Danny's talking his shit. And, you know, I know that Danny Brown's music is definitely not for everybody. It is an acquired taste. He makes very weird, out there shit. But there is very, very few people that can do what Danny does. Danny is so skilled. Like, there's no... Go listen to Atrocity Exhibition. There's next to nobody in the game that can rap over those type of production and those type of beats. And that's what I love about Danny. He does not give a shit about what is trending at all. He is completely his own artist. There is nobody that sounds like him. He is a one of one, and I will put him up against anybody too, because Danny would slaughter fools. I'm serious. Danny Brown is so good at rapping. I've seen him so many times. Yeah, Danny and Idols, their song Pop 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 is really dope, and Danny's kind of talking his shit a little bit. I like that type of energy out of Danny. I cannot wait for the album that he makes sober, because the one that came out last year, Quaranta, he made that when he was still using. And Scaring the Hose with JPEG Mafia, he also made while he was still using. So when he puts out this next project, I think Danny's going to be a serious problem too. And that's Detroit. So we have the top of the year, we have songs out of the East Coast with Joey. We got songs out of the UK with Little Simz, out of Detroit with Danny Brown, out of the South with Denzel Curry. So this shit is started off crazy. And then right before I press play, I see that Drake dropped a freestyle. So then we got one out of fucking Canada. But that one is weird to me. I didn't quite understand why it was released the way it was, unless it was leaked. Because what I saw was like a grainy video, kind of like of Drake sitting in front of a computer. I don't know if he's reading the lyrics off it or what he's doing, but he's just kind of it sounds like he's rapping over this Conductor Williams beat. And I'm not exactly sure if that was like a leak or something. It sounds like it could be okay though. It's funny, and to go back into this regional conversation, it feels like since post beef with Kendrick, Drake has kind of returned to the Canadian version of himself, the honest version of himself. I've seen him on a couple of these weird streamer dudes, Aiden Ross, who I can't stand that piece of shit. That kid is so dumb, it makes my brain hurt. But I've seen him on these streamers talking, and he's definitely sounding like a Canadian. And then, you know, he's definitely sounding less Atlanta in his music on this new one, sounding more like old early Drake, which I think is cool. But he's got some lines in there. Man, Drake, this whole woe is me attitude that he's got going on, it's so tiring, man. I'm so over it. We talk about why people are happy for Kendrick doing all these numbers, but people were never happy for you doing all these numbers. And that is just such bullshit, dude. Like, you have been the talk of the last 15 years, setting all these numbers. People have been giving you your accolades for years. And I think the reason you're seeing it celebrated a little bit more with Kendrick is because Kendrick didn't do it using any of the shortcuts or following trends like Drake did. He did it using his own style and never succumbing to the pressures of pop music or labels or social media. He did it all in his own way, and it may have taken him longer to get there. He's there now, but he did it being true to himself. He didn't have to go run to all these popular other rappers or steal people's sounds that were bubbling up like Drake has done for years and years and years. So I think that's why it's being celebrated, because it is very hard to cross over in hip hop music when you're making super pro-black music like Kendrick has. And I think that's worth being celebrated because there's artistic integrity behind everything Kendrick does. I think that that's maybe what that was about. And then also, I think it's as someone that had a drinking problem and doesn't drink anymore, you don't say stuff like, I don't have a drinking problem in your song unless you have a drinking problem. You just wouldn't bring it up because it's not worth even discussing. So maybe he does. We're going to discuss all these things more in length on the podcast that we're recording. So tune in for that. You can check out the Beats, Brews, and Points of View YouTube channel where we house some stuff, or you can stream us on Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon, SoundCloud. We're everywhere. You can literally just ask Alexa to play the Beats, Brews, and Points of View podcast, and we will pop back up there. We've got 145 episode backlog for you guys if you're brand new to it. So that would be awesome if you wanted to check in. I've said this quite a few times throughout the podcast about different things, but I'll put Detroit up against any other city, and that's against LA, that's against New York. I really believe that we have some of the most unique and talented spitters in the world here in Detroit. Talking about these dudes from Kendrick and Joey Badass and those guys' era coming back outside, someone that I would love to see get popping on the regional shit is Big Krit again, man, because Big Krit has always been a big problem, and I don't think anybody responded after he dropped Mount Olympus. So shout out to Big Krit. Yeah, that's what I got for you today. I'll be back with you with some more stuff about hip hop, and then I'm trying to get this Pink Floyd one done and some more paintings for Doechii and Brittany Howard. So lots of stuff to come, but that's what I got for you tonight. Peace.